We're going to start every single episode just laughing because we basically do the entire show before the show, which we should just record, but we don't. We don't record it. Yeah. I keep thinking that one of these times for so my other podcast that I do for work is all about video podcasting, and I was like, we should do an entire episode on just the tech check because we have way more fun in the tech check than we ever do in the episode itself, and I feel like this show is the same. Well, hi Nat, hi VHS Club fans. We are, if you have been keeping up with us here in the video store, we have been working our way through a ton of different Shakespeare adaptations, and we've been trying to keep it to more modern adaptations than those that are just sort of much more like theatrical stage presentations on film. But we were both, teaser for this one. Today we're talking about Hamlet. If you're trying to find this movie, you have to type in Hamlet Ethan Hawke or Hamlet 2000. Otherwise you will not find it because there's like a bajillion Hamlet movies. Before we even kick off, I will just say that watching this movie, and I didn't even make it all the way to the end because I ran out of time, but watching this movie just makes me want to watch all of the other Hamlet movies. So I don't know what that says, but I'm going to put that right out there, right at the start, just right out there into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want to summarize Hamlet for those who haven't read it or seen it? Let's just go, not this movie, but just Hamlet, because Hamlet's amazing.
Hamlet is amazing. If we had to give Hamlet potatoes, it would just be like a giant bag of potatoes that we would like stumble in and pour at Hamlet's feet. Hamlet is hands down one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, and hilariously, like fun fact about Katie, I ended up having to do this play multiple times in school because I moved. so I like did it in grade, I think 10 or 11. And then I had to redo it when I changed school. So at one point I had a lot of it memorized, both this one and Romeo and Juliet. I don't think I have as much of it memorized anymore, but that is neither here nor there. But if you ever really want to impress me, Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet are my two. Anyway, this play is a tragedy, and it takes place in Denmark, which is also hilarious because I'm married to a Dane.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, lots of Danes. None of them very happy or good here in this one. But anyway, so it takes place in Denmark. There is a king and a queen and a prince. The old king, the prince's father, has died, and the queen has remarried the uncle. So it's very dramatique. We are very shocked and surprised and horrified that she is married so soon. Hamlet is the prince, and he is equally upset and horrified. He is, in addition to being really upset and horrified, also seeing the ghost of his father. And the play just kind of devolves from there. It really becomes this very complicated emotional tragedy whereby, Hamlet is trying to come to terms with the loss of his father and, how quickly his mother has done this, in his mind, this horrific thing of remarrying so quickly. And he also discovers along the way that his father has been murdered. So it's just a very interesting and fascinating and feelings rich play. Lots of feelings, so many feelings. It has a play within a play, and a lot of fun facts come out of this play. A lot of like the most kind of iconic quotes that when people think about Shakespeare actually come from this play. So yeah, if you haven't read it, it's absolutely fantastic. I won't give away
It's
every
great.
single little
People
detail,
lose
but
their
it's pretty great.
minds.
People lose their minds.
And basically everybody dies. It's
everybody dies. Yes. When we say tragedy,
is a tragedy.
Yeah, we mean everybody dies.
Almost everybody.
Yeah.
Shakespeare does have other plays where literally everybody dies, but this one almost
everybody dies. I mean, basically everybody.
Basically.
Yeah. It's a really good one though. Oh, hey, Kimberly is watching us in our live studio audience. Hey, Kimberly. Kimberly hasn't seen this one yet. Kimberly, have you read the play though? Have you read Hamlet? Because this is not a good indicator if you've not seen, do not start with this one, we will say.
We're starting with, if you want to watch a 90s Hamlet movie, watch the one with Kenneth Branagh, Kate Winslet, and Derek Jacobi, or which is the 1996 Hamlet, or the 1990 Hamlet with Glenn Close and Mel Gibson and Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes, and I know that Mel Gibson is problematic, but trust me, he is fantastic in this.
He was very good.
Yeah. So, and the difference between those two movies and I guess this one, so let's compare them, right? So Hamlet is one of the most, it's been a minute, Kimberly says. Yeah, it has been a minute actually since I've read this one as well. I was saying before you jumped on that I've read this one a number of times. I almost had it fully memorized at one point, but it's been a while since I've read it. So now I'm feeling encouraged and eager to dive back into it. But yeah, so there are there's probably more than that, but there are three major movie adaptations that came out in the mid 90s. This one is 2000, that are all based on Hamlet. So as Nat was saying,
Hamlet was really doing his thing in the 90s.
Hamlet was doing his thing in the 90s. Yeah. So the Mel Gibson version is roughly 2 hours or so. It's like a typical movie length. And it is set in this almost like medieval castle. And it very much evokes this like dark foreboding. Like it feels like a stage adaptation of Hamlet, but in a film. And again, kind of set in this like very like dark stoic castle. And it feels kind of,
well, it does take place in a dark castle.
Yes. So it feels like a stage. Well, in comparison, the Kenneth Branagh version, which you said was a little bit later.
That was Branagh was 96. So the Gibson was 1990 and Branagh was 96.
So Branagh, that movie is over 4 hours long. So if you are a Pride and Prejudice fan, you can think of that one like the iconic Pride and Prejudice edition where it's like you're going to invest some time, but it will be worth the time. Yeah. And that one is actually set in this like almost, and I'm going to butcher the time frame because I'm just not good at like artistic time frames, but that one actually is like set in this very like beautiful like it is not dark and dingy like creepy castle. Like that one is like this like beautiful, wealthy, like gorgeous castle. There's a lot of like color and light and I think that one really does the best job of bringing out the layers of this story. So as we said, like Hamlet has this very, he's having all of his feelings. And then when he realizes that his father has not just died, but has been murdered, he puts into effect this plan whereby he's going to trick his family into telling him what happened. Right. So he acts crazy, but he is not actually crazy. And I will say that I think Kenneth Branagh, who is probably a little crazy in real life, does a really fantastic job of doing this. But I think that movie adaptation, and Nat, I'm interested to hear what you think, but I think that one does the best job of really like bringing the layers to life, both visually as well as in the acting. Yeah.
So in this one, we have Ethan Hawke, who plays the titular character Hamlet. It takes place in New York City.
This is a modern adaptation, so this one is like...
the dialogue in the movie is the play as written, but the setting is modern, New 2000 New York City. Hamlet comes home from school. He was away at I'm going to assume film school.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And he comes home to find out that his father, who is the head of the Denmark industry or Denmark corporation, has suddenly died, and his uncle and his mom are packing on the PDA. And he's like, what happened?
Yeah.
So he gets very emotional about it, and I think Ethan Hawke didn't get the note that Hamlet is supposed to pretend to be crazy, because he actually just plays it as if he is going crazy.
Yeah.
In the most monotone way possible. Which
yeah.
killed me. It almost killed me to rewatch this. Rewatching it was like, oh yeah, it was pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, we had been saying that we wanted to watch more movies that didn't get 5 potatoes, so buckle up. We're here. We're here with not 5 potatoes.
So, there are, it's an all-star cast. It was all-star at the time. Ethan Hawke was obviously cast as the lead role in this because he was the it guy at the time. He was the it boy in Hollywood. He had just come off of huge successes from like Gattaca and Great Expectations and Reality Bites. White Fang?
Yeah, White Fang.
So he was very much the it guy at the time, and to play his fiancée Ophelia is Julia Stiles, who was incredible in this. There was this one really awkward scene where he basically is like, okay, I don't have time to deal with my girlfriend, even though I love her very much. I'm just going to break up with her for now. And since I'm going to make things go very sideways and probably get a whole bunch of people dead, I'm going to tell her to go to the nunnery.
I know. That's such a... In any version of this, it's always just like this, like, ridiculous scene. Like, not ridiculous, like, funny, but, like, you're just like, why, though? Why? Like, why did you do...
Like, he wants to get her out of the way to make sure she's safe so she doesn't get murdered with everybody else in this movie. But, or play. He fails. So, he breaks up with her, and so this scene, he's trying to break up with her, and her father, who is trying to suck up to the new king, who is evil, obviously, because he killed his brother to steal his kingdom and wife.
So many spoilers in this one, Natalie.
Sorry. So the king and the dad, Mike Ophelia, like put on like, you know, like an undercover Mike to try spy on Hamlet. So then they send her off to go see Hamlet to spy on him to prove that he's going crazy, basically, so they can get rid of him somehow. So she's like the only time Ophelia is ever approached or spoken to in the play is to be used by somebody. She's used by her dad. She's used by her the queen's court. She's used by Hamlet. The only person that seems to love her is her brother.
Oh, and Alda feels... Liev Schreiber plays her brother in this. Laertes, and he carries this movie for me. Like, I could just watch him play this character in this movie.
He understood what acting a Shakespeare
movie.
Like, he understood Shakespeare. He understood the assignment. He was beyond phenomenal in this. So the awkward scene is she's recording him and he's breaking up with her, but then you could see he doesn't really want to break up with her because then he tries to start making out with her and realizes that she's mic'd. Monotone Hawke is doing his monotone most, and Julia Stiles, you could see she's like, she has no dialogue in this scene. She's breaking down. You could see she's trembling. She's shaking. Like, it was brilliant, but it was so awkward because like she outacted that whole scene, and like she's not the main character. And she didn't have dialogue.
She actually doesn't have very much dialogue at all throughout this entire...
Ophelia does not, no.
So, and you're right, like you almost feel bad for her as an actress because there are many scenes throughout this movie where she has no dialogue, and so there's only so much she can do, and she is doing like her damnedest. She is acting brilliantly, and the other actors around her are just ruining it for her, and it is painful to watch. I was saying to Nat before we jumped on that hands down my favorite like terrible moment from this movie. It's like almost I feel like we'll have to make it into a meme. I will have to find this clip and just make it into a gif or a meme. But she's this is before the scene Natalie just talked about, but Ophelia is in like her studio. She's processing film. It's like this very kind of like beautiful scene, and she's hanging up. She is acting, right?
Film
she's
is in
like,
pictures, like
film. Sorry, film is in pictures. She's processing pictures and she's hanging them up. Many people won't remember what this was like because now we have digital everything. But she was physically processing photos. And in what in comes Hamlet, and he's like, as Nat said, just monotone and awkward. And you don't really believe he actually cares.
And wearing a stupid toque. What
he's
was
wearing?
The toque?
Yeah, a beanie for our Americans.
Toque.
He's wearing this like he doesn't at all like
a knit cap, and it had ear flaps and strings and a pom pom. Okay, it was terrible.
He doesn't look the role at all. But he comes in and they're having like this moment together, and like they're supposed to be in love, and it's awkward and weird. Only because of him. And then down the hallway, her father in this movie is played by Bill Murray, who we adore. But he's really not very good in this. Like he is not as bad as others, but he's solidly mediocre in this. He's like the mid-level. But he comes
I feel like he did as directed.
He did as directed. He comes up the stairs. She's in like an apartment. For some reason, the door is open, which is weird because she's processing photos, so that's weird. But he comes up the stairs and he's holding like balloons. So he looks like a child. Like Bill Murray just looks like a ridiculous, and he's Bill Murray, so you want to laugh at him. He's like coming up the stairs. He's holding these balloons and he like comes into the room and then like sees them together and is like upset and concerned for some reason. You don't totally understand why. And then Ethan Hawke just like brushes past him, and like it I was saying tonight, it literally looks like you're watching like what is about to be a horrible improv skit where you're like, what are you trying to do here, team?
They did not
like,
yes and.
Yeah, what are you doing here, team? Like you have all of these like talented actors and none of you are pulling this out. Like, what was the point of this scene? So there was a lot of that, unfortunately, in this movie, which is...
I have to say, Diane... I keep wanting to call her Diane Verona. It's not. It's Diane...
Let's call her Verona.
Venora? It's Venora.
Let's just
She also plays Juliet's mother, Lady Capulet.
Yes. Yeah.
She is known, like she does Shakespeare. Like she's the Shakespearean actor. She's phenomenal. So she played the queen, who is worried. Like she does fall into bed with her brother-in-law quite quickly, who becomes the new king.
Yep.
But when her son comes home and he's very suspicious, she starts to question and she starts to wonder, and then Hamlet starts to go insane, which is supposed to just be pretend, but she's really concerned about him.
Yeah.
And, and she starts to lose it a bit too. And, yeah,
there's a lot of madness layers of madness in this play.
There's people that are going mad, people that are seeing ghosts. Not just Hamlet. Several people are seeing the dead king's ghost. Yeah. He's talking to his dead father. So he is pretending to be mad, but at the same time, he's actually speaking to his dead father.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit crazy. And by mad, we mean crazy. Like, as in madness. And
he's also
not
mad,
anger.
like angry. But that's a different story. Yeah. You know what I think the worst part about this is that because they decided to do a modern, like very of the time modern adaptation while still using the exact dialogue from the play, it makes me immediately compare it to Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, which is just flawlessly done. So it's like this movie in my mind just never stood a chance, almost entirely due to that. Like even if the cast had been absolutely brilliant, like it just, and who knows, maybe Baz Luhrmann could have done this one like as
it was a very different
Juliet, but
it's a very different style of film.
It is.
I was telling Katie earlier today that I feel like this was like sort of the beginning of, in the early aughts, or just in the early to mid aughts, I would say, which is the 2000s, if people are wondering, because I've been saying aughts lately because that's what it was called, and people are like, what's that? I'm like, that's what we called it, was the aughts, not the OOs. But anyways.
The zeros.
So in the early aughts, there was this whole genre of film that I called the film snob genre, where
Yeah.
it was these very like artsy think piece, like, oh, symbolism and weird camera tricks and different types of films. Like, you didn't want to use the gritty, like, 8mm, you didn't want to use the fancy 35mm, so you used the in between, which I think they did in this movie. So it was all these sort of like artistic choices that became very common and very popular at the time for these movies.
Yeah.
But it didn't fully pull it off, in my opinion. So
no, it didn't.
You were saying with Baz Luhrmann. So at the beginning of the movie, there's a famous scene of draw your swords. Yeah. And they pull out guns, but this type of gun they have is actually called a sword.
Yeah.
So Baz Luhrmann was very detail oriented in all of that.
Well,
whereas in this movie, it didn't have that. There were certain things that really, really stood out. Like at one scene where they're sitting in front of an embassy, and I'm like, what flag is that? Colombia. Okay, so it's the Colombian embassy in New York City. Why? Why was that so prominent and obvious in the shot? Like, it's the only thing I could look at. I don't remember what scene it was. Like, I don't remember the dialogue. It was nonsensical, you know? Like, so there was a lot of stuff where I was like, oh, does that mean something? No.
Well, what's interesting, so I'm pulling up the trivia for this because so there, if you recall, and if you were joining us last week, we talked in detail about the movie O, which is based on Othello, and it was really difficult to find a lot of information really about that movie. Like, that we had very few, what we call fun facts or trivia about that movie. Whereas this one actually has quite a lot, and sort of in slight contrary to what you were just saying, I'm looking at this now, but
I feel like it felt like it had a lot of
symbolism
and meaning.
Yeah, it tried to do that. So like there are things like it says, in keeping with the modernized presence of all things Shakespeare throughout the film, Hamlet travels on a plane, which is a play on the words, because in the original text of the play, the scene takes place, quote unquote, a plane in Denmark. Get it? It's like a plane, Plain, but he was on a plane. So like they did do, and it says too, like
they did some of the obvious.
They did some of it. Well, I mean, and it's funny. It's like not really all that obvious. Like if you don't read some of this stuff, you probably would not have picked it up. Whereas I feel like the example that you just gave from from Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, that one was obvious, right? Like the guns were called swords. Like they were literally
they did a close up, a dramatic close up. On
so
the
it's
guns.
like it was like it was wordplay, but in a much more obvious way. So had you not if you were not a diehard Shakespeare fan, you wouldn't pick up. Whereas this one tried to be more subtle about it, and I think failed as a result of that. So it's I'm just looking at some of these other ones. Like it says here too that the only lines in the movie which are not from the original play are messages played by machines. So answering machines or scenes where he's like recording films and playing back and things like where it's not people talking.
That doesn't make sense though.
I know, which is a little bit strange, but I think kind of.
Oh no, the answering machine. No, on the answering. So in the movie, on the answering machine, he does the whole to the nunnery, the go. Like,
yes, that one is accurate.
That's over. Yeah, but there are clips of like the Dalai Lama and Bill Clinton.
Exactly.
And
so all of that is like
I was going to say James
background.
Franco, not at all James Franco. James Dean. Dear God, he played him in a movie once.
He did. He did.
One of the things that I thought was funny, it's like when Hamlet is like near the end of the movie where he's like, okay, so there's a play within the play. In this, he puts together a little movie and has a private screening for his family and the company, like the board of directors.
As you do. I mean, in the play, it was like the whole castle that came out. So
it was the court.
It makes sense. Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, but what kind of business is this?
I know, they're like, we're gonna
the CEO died.
The CEO's son for a little bit here. Yeah.
We'll just watch this movie that this stupid whiny film kid made.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know where I was going. I lost my thought. Guys, I'm sorry. I have a bit of a cold. I'm hoping it's just a cold. It's a really sore throat and a stuffy nose.
Oh.
Probably COVID. I did a lot of socializing lately, which I never do unmasked, but I did. And I think I'm paying for it.
Well, here, maybe this fact will help you. So the music that the music that plays during that film, which he calls the Mousetrap, is part of Tchaikovsky's Hamlet opera 67.
Yes, I don't know who the filmmaker was, but they did have a love affair with Russia. Not modern day Russia, Stalin Russia, actually. In later, after the play, and then all the family members start to scramble because they realize that Hamlet might not be cracking up and they need to get rid of him before things get found out. But then Hamlet seems to actually be cracking up, which that confused me, but there's a whole bunch of books, and it keeps focusing in on these books that are in the background of Ethan Hawke. And they're Mayakovsky, who was known as, he was a Russian poet. And he was known as the poet of the revolution during Stalin times. Which I'm assuming the stretch, because I had to Google it. I'm like, I don't know who Mayakovsky is. Like, not up on my Soviet poets, but I think the idea behind showing that several times was that Hamlet is coming in and he's going to revolutionize the kingdom. Like, I guess, I don't know, he was fighting the man, he's going to call everybody out. I think that's where they're going with that. So it was stuff like, the movie did have a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm like looking, like the beer and the drinking scenes is Tuborg, which is a Danish brand of beer. So like there's all these like nods, and we should talk for a second about there's this like iconic for this film. I will use iconic in finger quotations, but there's an iconic scene where Hamlet is in a Blockbuster video. And we will talk about all of the dead tech in this movie, the tragedy of dead technology in this movie. But Hamlet is in a Blockbuster video saying his soliloquy, and the film that is playing in the background is The Crow, is The Crow City of Angels from '96, the second installment of the movie. And the premise of that movie is that the protagonists are sent to avenge the dead and set things right. So it's like it's one of those movies where, like, again, I think you're dead on in what you said earlier, that it's trying too hard. Like it is, it's like layers upon layers upon layers that, like, again, even people like us who spend way too much time, reading these plays and diving in and have studied them and have watched almost every single version of movie adaptations of these plays, like, we wouldn't catch this stuff without Google searching it. So it is a little bit ridiculous, like, as far as how deep they went. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess. Like, you would have to be paying really close attention, and you would also have to be like in on it in some way to catch all of the different things.
These things stuck out like sore thumbs because I think it was being made so obvious that I actually, like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, look this up on my phone, because it's like they're throwing it at the wall here at this point. But it's monotone. Ethan Hawke, monotone.
It's very monotone.
There is a great scene though with his mother, Gertrude, where he goes in and he's wielding a weapon, and he says, I'm gonna kill the king, and she's like, why? And he explains it to her, and she starts to go a bit crazy.
Why though?
So I said that really monotone.
No, it's good. It's like, I'm gonna kill your husband, and she's like, why though? And he's like, because
he killed your first husband. And Diane Venora was, but stop it. That's not her real name, and she's a brilliant actor. She goes, like, she absolutely loses it. It was a great scene. Though there was a really awkward mother-son mouth-to-mouth kiss.
There is in, like, almost every version. That threw me.
I was like, that's a little awkward. Like, is that necessary? Like, why? Yeah. Like, I understand a kiss, but, like, why was it on the mouth?
Well, I think it's because a lot that's
like, adults don't kiss their parents on their adult mouths.
I could be totally wrong, and Shakespeare buffs will, call me out in the comments or
was
send
that
us
in
an
the
email.
play?
But I don't know whether or not it was in the play. I believe, if I recall, I think I've only seen this one on the stage
he kisses
once.
her, but I just
I think he
assumed it
does.
was like on the cheek, like you kiss your mom normally.
No, well, I think if I recall correctly, like a lot of what that scene is about is he's trying to like really like derail her and upset her and like and be kind of like coming at her. Like I don't think he's coming at her sexually, but I almost feel like by kissing her on the lips, it's almost this like throw in the face of like of what she is doing. It's like this like it's this like shocking, completely like,
I guess it doesn't. I feel like I'm stretching here, but it doesn't mime the incestuous relationship she's having with her brother-in-law.
Exactly. It's almost like to me, again, I could be totally wrong, but it's almost this like throwing it back in her face what she's doing. She's like out there doing, what he sees as a really incestuous relationship and all these, PDAs that are happening like all in public.
I have to say I don't remember that scene that way. But watching it like in this movie, I'm like, did we need that though? But now that you're saying it, I get it. Like I
remember it pretty vividly from, again, I don't remember it vividly, and I only got halfway through this one in full disclosure. So, but I remember it. I remember it really vividly from both the Mel Gibson and the Kenneth Branagh ones, and those ones I feel like they did a much. Again, I didn't rewatch this clip, but they did a much better job, I think, of making it feel much more like he's on the attack. Like he's like coming at her. He's doing these things that are like really upsetting and shocking to her. He's threatening her. Like, so it felt very in that vibe to me, felt like this was just kind of the one extra thing that was like super wrong and inappropriate and threatening and awful. Like
in this movie, I feel like it was kind of at the end of that. Mm-hmm. It's like, he shocked her. He's got, like physically abusive with her. Yeah. He shot Polonius by accident because he was hiding in the closet.
Yeah.
Not a euphemism. He was hiding.
He's a spy.
Anyways, he was. Yeah. And he thought it was maybe the king, so he shot and accidentally killed his fiance's father, who basically was throwing him under the bus the whole time anyways, so whatever. Just a little murder. And so I feel it was kind of like at the end of all that, like when everything, now she realizes, okay, yes, like Hamlet's right, I can't believe I almost let my new husband kill my son, and my husband's evil, he killed my good husband, and like, like she wakes up. She does wake up in this scene. I do love in this movie, and it has stuck with me since I had seen this originally, is the fountain scene. And it's also very the fountain scenes in the play with Ophelia. Though we didn't get Julia Stiles singing a song, but I do love the fountain shots in this movie. Like at the beginning, you see her sitting by the fountain in a red coat waiting for him. And then at the end, she ends up drowning herself in the fountain because she's just been manipulated and mentally abused by everybody and used by everybody, especially her father. The only person that truly loved her was her brother. I mean, arguably Hamlet did, because he tried to get her out of town to save her, but Hamlet did get very self-involved. He did not have a very good emotional intelligence.
No, he lost himself a little. Yeah.
He was like, I need to fix this, and it's the only thing that matters right now is vengeance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there were like a lot of, I would say the other thing that I thought was interesting about this version is that it did, and I think we've said this about just about every single one of the movies we've watched so far on the show, but it was a really nice snapshot of the time. So like the costuming, the like, all of the nods to everything that were so iconic at that time. Yeah. It's somewhat ironic, and I'll post in the show notes a link to an article that we read prior to jumping on, but it is somewhat like ironic and kind of interesting that all of the like cultural and technology and like all of the things that were like iconic in this movie are all dead things. Like
now.
like Blockbuster is no longer a thing. Like all of the kind of like video technology, the film
video,
equipment, yeah, the like
the
even
computers,
all of the, I mean, all of the technology,
machines, fax machines,
answering machines, fax
There's
machines.
a fax machine.
It is kind of crazy. Like, you know, this movie is 23 years old, and we were looking up before jumping on. Like this movie predates, you know, all of social media. So this came out before, you know, before MySpace and Facebook and you know, all of these things that well, MySpace doesn't exist anymore, but that have become so like, I don't know, part of our day-to-day lives. It also is like right before 9/11 in New York City, so it's a completely different New York City than what we know now and what exists today.
One thing about this, like in this film, they never have the classic New York City shot.
No,
you don't
they
see
don't.
The towers. You don't see it doesn't have the skyline, not once.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an interesting choice. I mean, it could have been filmed in any city, in any urban apartment complex. You know, like it was. Though the museum, I forget what museum it is in this movie. That's pretty iconic with the circular white.
I'd love to tell you, but I don't know.
Corridors, it's a circle and it's all white. Anyways, I don't know what it's called. It's in a lot of movies. It's in some Hallmark movies. See, my taste can go from good to bad.
There you go. Yeah, it is fascinating, and I think that there's a lot, as much as we've kind of ripped on this movie for the last 30 so minutes. There is a lot about this movie that is really well done. I think it was a bold choice to make, you know, I mean, I guess not a totally bold choice, but I like the fact that they kept the actual play itself and all of the dialogue. I think by and large they did pretty well with that. And they had
a great cast.
There was a great cast. I think the vibe of the movie, I think I agree, was too artsy, but I think overall the cinematography and the feel of it was really like perfectly set.
A good sort of angsty feel.
Yeah, it's a very kind of broken time and broken place. Like, and I think they did a nice job of downplaying all the things people love about New York City and kind of playing up the, like, you know, all the kind of negative aspects of the city, right? So like the greed and the darkness and the kind of like sprawling,
sort of the decay,
isolating sides of the city. Yeah. So I think that was really well done. And I think there were a lot of great actors.
For the costumes, do you remember the chokehold that dress shirts had on teen boys at the time? Like every teen boy was in an oversized button-down collared shirt, and it was that polyester. Oh my god! It's funny seeing Ethan Hawke. He was like in the button-down shirt.
Yep.
He had on those really ugly, and I don't miss the trend at all, the colored lens glasses. I kind of wondered, because there is a lot of like sort of, I guess, new technology of the time in the movie.
Yeah.
Like computers and stuff. Like a lot of people didn't have a personal at-home computer.
No,
in the year 2000. You know,
it was showing a lot of the like wealth of the time as well. For
very,
sure.
very well. Yeah. So he had on these yellow lensed glasses, and I'm wondering, because a lot of computer people wear yellow lens glasses. They're called gunner glasses or hacker glasses, but so I was wondering if that was like to show that he's. Because I think their company was meant to be like a tech company.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there's a. It's. I think it would make a fascinating paper talking about like the use of technology in this film, because it was that part of it.
I mean,
think was
I have to say the film intrigues me, and it was fascinating in the fact of how it was filmed. That I didn't like it, but I appreciate it, if that makes any sense. I really do appreciate a lot of what this film brought. And I just realized he was wearing a red shirt at the beginning, and Ophelia was wearing a red shirt or jacket at the beginning. And then when she kills herself, she's wearing that same red jacket at the end.
Yeah.
And he's in all white. Well, but then it gets covered in red, but because everybody
he
dies.
ends in red.
But
Yes.
I love at the end. So Ophelia's brother, Laertes,
Mm-hmm.
and Hamlet have a duel because
Mm-hmm.
he has to avenge his
Sister.
father. And I say
His father, I
Laertes has
guess.
to avenge that Hamlet accidentally killed Laertes' father.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a duel, and in this movie that takes place in like 2000 and it's all modern and computers, they have an actual fencing duel, and it's on the roof of like a skyscraper of, I suppose, of the company in New York City. And the one thing that I don't understand, and maybe somebody could tell us, they had them on a little platform, and they had wires like attached to them, like harnesses. And I'm like, but why? If they're standing on the roof, and the roof should be high enough that you don't, like, the barrier should be high enough that you don't fall over. Why were they wired? Like, what did they think was going to happen? Why did they have to wire them in? I don't understand. But actually, one scene I did really like at the end is the king is like, okay, this is my time. I'm going to poison a glass of wine for Hamlet. If he doesn't die in this duel, I'm going to kill him with poisoned wine. Yep. And his mom comes and saves him.
Yeah.
She gets one last hug from him, and then she saves him.
Yeah.
And it's like mom came around for him at the end.
Yeah, I mean...
Not that it really mattered, because they all died, but...
They do all die, yes.
Did he even know his mom saved his life? It's like it all happened so fast. It's like, do you know that you saved your mom? Like, and you avenged your father? Did you know that happened?
Such a dark play.
Yeah. Also, really funny. Don't do that, Katie. Katie yawned. Now I want to yawn.
Oh, but I have the camera that tracks me, though, so I can't even hide.
She can't even go off camera, guys.
Can't go off camera.
One thing I loved is several times Ethan Hawke is just like brandishing a gun and running around. Like running around the city, running around the office, trying to find his uncle. He's, running around the rooftop with this gun. Like,
but they
nobody bats an eye at it. Nobody looks at it. Nobody even, like, when he runs into his uncle's office and he's running through the whole, like, all the cubicles and sees a secretary, he's holding the gun and she's just like, he's not here. Like, doesn't even... It's wild. He was just running around with a gun and nobody said anything.
Yeah. Where are the police people
I thought that was kind of
funny. where are they at?
There was a security guard.
Yeah, that's not the same.
No.
He pays for those security guards. Yeah, you're right that it is kind of interesting that they modernized like all the other. But again, if we compare it against Romeo and Juliet, which was just like, nah, well, like, we're gonna just go straight into guns. Like, this one was like guns, but also fencing. It's like,
and nobody dies with the swords, though. Like, well, they all get shot.
No, and poisoned. Laertes gets poisoned with the tip of the sword. Does he not? In
the play.
In the play. I didn't watch the end of this one.
So at the end of the movie, he has what I believe looks like Hamlet's gun that his uncle had taken off of him earlier.
Wait, so they do the whole fencing in this movie, but then they don't kill Laertes with the fencing? What?
Yeah.
Oh.
So Laertes pulls out this gun and then rushes at Hamlet with it. And then the gun goes off twice, but it seems that it only shot Laertes. And then he, as he's dying, forgives Hamlet, tells him, go kill your dad or your uncle. And, it's like he basically, Laertes is way too nice. He loved his sister. He forgives Hamlet for killing everybody. He says, I forgive you and go and get your uncle. He's evil. Go kill him too.
Yeah.
No, but they all get shot.
He's probably the best character.
He is, yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, no. For our listeners, I'm playing around today with a new camera called the Insta360 Link. Not a sponsor, but it's really fun. It has tracking ability, and it's like really tiny and cute. So I was able to like move a bunch of stuff back on my desk. But it's not great for the fact that I've been up like what feels like nonstop, because speaking of the 90s, I went to go see Bush last night after working like back-to-back long days for a conference I was running. So I'm delirious.
Concert? Like
I went
Gavin
to go
Rossdale?
see Gavin Rossdale, who weirdly enough I have now seen in concert 3 times.
Gavin Rossdale.
Yes. Not so the other times that I've seen him, he was like Bush the band and Gavin Rossdale the singer was they were like the not opening act, but like they were with other bands in like a larger. And I've never been like a diehard Bush fan, but the more
I'm like
you're like, why though? The theme of tonight is why though? Yeah. Well, but they're really good in concert, and I know.
I loved Bush.
Sorry.
It was like all the 90s.
I'm sorry, you're not here. But this is why I keep yawning. So for those listening who are like, what the heck? This is on theme because this was a 90s concert that has kept me this away. So we're still on theme here. Well, let's move. We're at that time of the evening where we should move over to our potato review, which should be no big surprise. And before we go over here, if you're new to this podcast and you're like, what the heck? Are they saying potato? Mm-hmm. Yes, we are. We're saying that. We rate all of the movies that you likely have already seen before because they're from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s with a potato ranking of 1 potato to 5 potatoes, 5 being the best and 1 being abysmal. We've yet to give a 1 potato, so that to look forward to for all of our fans listening. But the reason behind this is that Nat is a diehard fan of Christian Slater, and as
everybody is after they've seen Pump Up the Volume.
Everybody is. Go back and listen to our Pump Up the Volume episode. But so one year for Christmas, I got her a potato with Christian Slater's face on it, and we've since dubbed that Christian Tater, which is a much better name than I can't even remember what I called him, but it wasn't
Spud Slater.
Spud Slater, not as good. Christian Tater. So now that's our ranking system. So without further ado, we're over here. Yay! 3 potatoes. 3. Again,
3 taters.
If this had been Hamlet,
if it was just Hamlet the play,
it would be a bag of taters. Yeah, it would just be like it would be us like lugging in bags and bags of taters. But it would
just be the whole potato farm. Okay, but
here are the keys to the potato farm.
We go from potato farm, which is Hamlet, to 3 potatoes, which is this movie.
Yeah. This was the weakest link.
Great.
This is the weakest link. So we. Because we if you're keeping up with us, we reviewed 10 Things I Hate About You, also Julia Stiles. Fantastic. We thoroughly enjoyed that one. It's just brilliantly done. And then we moved to Julia Stiles doing which was a modern adaptation of Othello. Also really good, strong. Like we really enjoyed that one. And then so we figured we would finish and do a Hamlet with Julia Stiles, but this one, she couldn't carry. She tried. She came really close to carrying this movie all the way through.
Between her and Liev, I thought they had it, but it was the monotone. I feel bad. Ethan Hawke is a great actor.
He's a great actor.
I don't know if it was the director's choice, producer's choice. Like, I don't know how that works, but
I don't know what happened.
I mean, he basically just played this whiny, like, film student kind of kid, and he had a hard time getting his mouth around the words, like it is Shakespearean, and it's often done in a different accent, and it's often it didn't work with him. But I do enjoy most of his other stuff. So it's not him. It's the movie.
It's the movie. I think it's a mix of a few different things. I think it's not an easy play to bring to life, and I think it like in defense of the team that did this movie, I don't know how successful anyone would be really at doing like a modern adaptation. Like the other ones that we enjoy are like, but they're they're remakes, right? I mean,
there is one, and it was a TV show. It was called Slings and Arrows,
oh, we were going to talk
starring
about Slings
Paul
and Arrows.
Gross. Yeah. So this Slings and Arrows is from a line from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
From the play.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul Gross, Canadian actor and Shakespearean actor, he wrote, directed, and starred in this TV show called Slings and Arrows. It was 3 seasons, and each season focused on an acting troupe, like a theater group, putting on a Shakespeare play for the Shakespeare Festival. It takes place. They don't say it takes place in Stratford, Ontario, but it basically takes place in Stratford, Ontario.
Yeah, Paul is a Canadian actor, and it is 100% filmed in Stratford. And
and Stratford, Ontario is basically like Canada's version of Stratford, England.
Yeah,
where Shakespeare's from.
Yep,
plays are performed. So in the first season, it's all about this former actor, retired, who's basically lost his mind after playing Hamlet to perfection, gets bequeathed the position of art director of this theater when the art director passes away.
Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant because it's a play within a play within a play. Like, it's
not a true though modern. I will say, hands down, one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Will always be one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I've seen it so many times. Everyone needs to watch this show. And Rachel McAdams is in it, so if you know and love her from The Notebook, you will love this show.
The guy from Marvelous Miss Maisel, oh god, he was young and beautiful. He's still beautiful, and he's not actually old, but
I will argue that it's close. It's mostly it's mostly drawing from Hamlet, but it does definitely take liberties. I still hold strong to my statement. I think what made this particular movie fail, or part of what made it fail, is that they tried to do what Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet did, and it was just really, I think it's just a really difficult play to do that with. Like, it would be my defense.
Also, Baz Luhrmann, his brain works different. I mean, the fact that Romeo and Juliet was part of a trilogy, the Red Curtain trilogy, look it up. It's fantastic. And when you figure out how those movies even fit together, you're like,
Good news, Nat, because next week we're going to do Romeo and Juliet to finish off our Shakespeare adaptations, and then we can move right in to Moulin Rouge. Exactly. Trilogy? Exactly. We could just move right in. It'll be
trilogy for people is Strictly Ballroom, Romeo and Juliet, and Moulin Rouge.
But we'll do them in the opposite-ish way. We're going to do them out of order. We're going to do them in a mixed order. We're going to
do Romeo and Juliet first.
Because we're working on a series. You'll have to forgive us. But yeah, it'll I think that's a really a good point. There have been a lot of like takes on Hamlet. Some funny, some serious, some close to the story, some really far away, but yeah, I think it'll be great. Oh, Chris is on. Chris, we're just wrapping, but we'll put your comment on screen because, hey, why not, right? We can do that with the magic of technology. Chris says, I remember Christian Slater as playing Will Scarlet in Robin Hood and getting an arrow shot through his hand. That was a really, not as good as Pump Up the Volume, though. So if you haven't seen that one, then we're disowning you as a friend.
He's still equally cute. I'm sure I've made him watch it.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it. Oh, I love it. Well, we should probably wrap. So if you have survived all the way to the end of listening or watching this podcast, then you will have been one of our most favorite people. You should definitely join us every single Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. If you want to join us for the live recording of this podcast, we record live on YouTube. You can find us if you go to youtube.com/the VHS Club. If you want to email us, you can send us an email with your favorite movie recommendations and your thoughts on the movies we've already reviewed. You can email us at thevhsclubpod@gmail.com. And you can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It drops on Fridays. Usually pretty early on Friday mornings because I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, give it a listen, give it a share, leave us a review, tell us what you think. We'd love to hear from you. But it's always fun to have at least a couple people hanging out in the live chat tonight. We had Kim and we had Chris, so it was really fun to be able to see your comments. So thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks as always, Nat. You killed it this time because I didn't even get to the end of this one. I was too tired.
Yeah, but you also know it by heart. Not the movie, the play, but
yeah. I know. So, I feel like that might be my challenge. It's right. I feel like that's my challenge for this year. I feel like I'm approaching 40 and I'm like, well, maybe for my 40th birthday, I will rememorize Hamlet and or Romeo and Juliet. We'll work our way through. Yes. Just to prove that I can do it again. I feel like it's still up there somewhere, but it's been a while.
That sounds good.
Well,
all right. So on to next week.
Next week,
where we cover Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet.
Yay! I'm excited. We'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks for watching.